The gleaming glass doors of the high-end luxury store slid open with a soft whoosh as a man in a worn-out black jacket stepped inside. The store was a masterpiece of elegance, crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling, gold-trimmed shelves lined with designer bags, and sales associates dressed in polished suits, their expressions practiced and professional. It was the kind of place where exclusivity wasn't just a selling point, it was a way of life. The man who had just entered, however, didn't seem to fit the mold. His dark hair was slightly unkempt, his beard had a rugged edge, and his clothes, though clean, lacked the sharpness of the clientele who usually strolled in with an air of privilege. He moved quietly, his eyes scanning the displays, but something about him carried an unshakable presence. Yet, in a place like this, appearance was everything, and to the employees, he looked like someone who didn't belong. Near the front of the store, a tall, well-dressed sales associate, Marcus, nudged his colleague and smirked. "Look at that guy," he muttered under his breath. "Lost, maybe?" His colleague, a woman with perfectly styled blonde hair, chuckled. "Or looking for a place to warm up. Probably doesn't even know where he is." They watched as the man approached one of the glass display cases, his fingers grazing the surface as he admired an elegant watch. Before he could get a closer look, Marcus strode over with a tight-lipped smile, the kind reserved for people who didn't seem like real customers. "Can I help you?" Marcus asked, his tone laced with condescension. The man glanced up and gave a small nod. "Yeah, I was wondering about this watch." His voice was calm, deep, polite. Marcus barely glanced at it before replying, "That's a limited edition piece. Handcrafted. Costs more than most people make in a year." He let the words sink in, watching for the inevitable reaction, the awkward laugh, the sudden discomfort, maybe even an excuse to leave. But the man simply nodded. "It's beautiful." Marcus exhaled sharply, growing impatient. "Sir, let's be honest. This store carries exclusive brands, luxury items meant for a particular clientele." He eyed the man's jacket. "Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at a different store, something more within your range?" Nearby, a few other shoppers glanced over, sensing the tension. Some smirked, others turned away, uninterested. The man remained quiet for a moment, then let out a small, almost amused breath. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and tapped a few times. The sales associate sighed, assuming he was checking his bank balance, about to realize his mistake. But before anyone could say another word, a different voice interrupted. "Excuse me, sir, is there a problem here?" A manager, an older gentleman with neatly combed hair and a refined posture, approached. His sharp eyes flickered between Marcus and the man. Marcus quickly straightened up. "Oh, no problem at all, sir. Just helping this gentleman understand our pricing." The manager's gaze landed on the customer. He studied his face for a moment, and then, something shifted. His expression changed, a flicker of recognition flashing through his eyes. His lips parted slightly, and his breath caught as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Marcus noticed the sudden change. "Sir," he asked, confused. But the manager didn't answer. Instead, he took a step closer to the man, the same man Marcus had just dismissed. His voice, now careful and respectful, broke the silence. "Mr. Reeves." The entire store seemed to freeze. A hush fell over the room as realization dawned. The few customers who had been nearby turned their heads, whispering among themselves. Employees who had barely spared him a glance suddenly stood straighter, their expressions shifting from disinterest to pure shock. Marcus's face paled. His breath hitched as his mind scrambled to process the name. His stomach dropped as the truth settled in. Keanu Reeves. The Keanu Reeves. And he had just been insulted by the very store that should have been bending over backward to welcome him. For a moment, no one spoke. The weight of the mistake hung heavy in the air. Then Keanu finally smiled, calm, understanding, but with an unmistakable edge. And in that moment, the store knew, they had made a mistake they would regret forever. The silence in the store stretched, heavy and suffocating. Marcus felt his throat go dry, his mind racing as he processed what had just happened. The man he had dismissed, the one he had subtly insulted, wasn't just another window shopper. He was Keanu Reeves, one of the most famous and beloved actors in the world. The realization hit like a brick. The murmurs among the customers grew louder, a few even pulling out their phones, whispering excitedly. Marcus could feel his heart pounding in his chest. His hands, moments ago resting on the glass counter with confidence, now hovered uncertainly as if unsure where to place them. Keanu, on the other hand, didn't seem angry. If anything, there was something almost amused in the way he looked at Marcus. Not smug, not vengeful, just observing. Like he had seen this happen before. Like he had expected it. The manager was the first to recover. He quickly stepped forward, his tone now dripping with nervous politeness. "Mr. Reeves, I sincerely apologize for any misunderstanding. If there's anything at all we can do." Keanu tilted his head slightly, considering. "No need," he said simply. His voice was calm, measured. He turned his attention back to the watch in the display case, his fingers lightly tapping against the glass. "I was just looking." The manager swallowed hard. He knew the damage had already been done. The way Marcus had treated Keanu, like he was beneath the store, like he wasn't worth their time, was the kind of mistake that couldn't just be smoothed over with an apology. Especially when it was Keanu Reeves, a man known not only for his success but for his kindness and humility. Marcus, still frozen in place, finally found his voice. I didn't realize." Keanu's eyes met his, and the way he held Marcus's gaze sent a shiver down his spine. There was no anger, no raised voice, just quiet disappointment. Somehow, that was worse. The blonde sales associate, who had been laughing along with Marcus earlier, suddenly stepped forward, her tone drastically different from before. "Mr. Reeves, if you'd like, I can personally assist you with anything in the store," she offered with an eager smile, her posture now respectful, almost desperate to undo the damage. Keanu gave her a small nod but didn't move from where he stood. Instead, he glanced around the store, noticing how quickly the atmosphere had shifted. A few customers were still watching, some whispering among themselves, their expressions ranging from curiosity to second-hand embarrassment. One man, standing near the shelves of designer wallets, shook his head and chuckled. "Man, that's gotta be the biggest mistake I've ever seen," he muttered to no one in particular. Marcus felt his ears burn. His carefully built persona, the confident, elite sales associate who knew exactly who belonged and who didn't, was crumbling fast. He had judged a book by its cover, and now he was watching as the whole store realized just how wrong he had been. Keanu, still calm, finally turned back to the manager. "You know," he said, his voice even, "I don't usually like to make a scene." The manager nodded quickly, forcing a smile. Of course. And we deeply regret." Keanu raised a hand slightly, and the manager fell silent. "I just think it's interesting," Keanu continued, his tone light but firm, "how often people assume things based on appearances." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Marcus swallowed, feeling like the room was closing in on him. The confident smirk he had worn earlier was completely gone. He wanted to disappear, to turn back time and take back every word he had said. Keanu gave one last glance at the watch in the case before stepping away from the counter. He didn't storm out. He didn't make a dramatic exit. Instead, he moved with the same quiet presence he had walked in with, except now, every single person in the store was watching him. As he walked toward the door, another man entered the store. He was dressed in a sleek, custom-tailored suit, his wrist adorned with an expensive watch. Unlike Keanu, he looked the part of a luxury shopper. The manager, still rattled, quickly turned to him. "Welcome, sir," he greeted, his voice extra polished as he tried to regain control of the situation. The man barely acknowledged him. His gaze went straight to Keanu, and without hesitation, he grinned. "Keanu. Good to see you, man." Keanu smiled back, shaking his hand. "Hey, good to see you too." Marcus watched in horror as the well-dressed man, someone the store would have gladly welcomed without hesitation, laughed and clapped Keanu on the shoulder like an old friend. "You checking this place out?" the man asked. Keanu chuckled softly. "Yeah, just looking." The man smirked. "Well, if you're buying, I'm buying. Let's make it interesting." With that, he turned toward the counter and gestured toward the same watch Keanu had been admiring. "I'll take that one," he said casually. Then, he glanced at Keanu. "And whatever he wants, put it on my tab." The entire store fell into stunned silence. Marcus felt the ground shift beneath him. Keanu, still composed, simply shook his head with a small smile. "That's generous," he said. "But I think I'll pass." With that, he gave the store one last glance, then turned and walked toward the door. This time, when he stepped outside, everyone was watching him go, not as someone who didn't belong, but as someone they had completely underestimated. And as the doors whooshed shut behind him, Marcus finally let out a shaky breath, realizing that the regret he felt now was just beginning. Marcus stood frozen behind the counter, his hands gripping the edge as if holding on to something solid would stop the sinking feeling in his chest. The reality of what had just happened weighed down on him. He had insulted Keanu Reeves. The Keanu Reeves. And now, the whole store, maybe even the internet soon, knew about it. The man who had greeted Keanu, someone clearly wealthy and influential, was still standing at the counter, drumming his fingers against the glass as he waited. "So, about that watch," he said, glancing between the manager and Marcus. His tone was light, but there was a sharpness in his eyes. The manager forced a nervous smile. "Of course, sir. Right away." He gestured for Marcus to handle the sale, but Marcus hesitated. His mind was still caught on what had just happened. How quickly the tables had turned. He had gone from someone who dictated who belonged in the store to someone barely able to keep his hands steady. As he fumbled with the display case, his fingers stiff and awkward, he could hear whispers among the customers. A couple near the handbags were murmuring, their heads tilted toward their phones, their faces lit with excitement. Another man, pretending to browse belts, was obviously typing something fast. Marcus felt a knot form in his stomach. Were they already tweeting about this? Posting videos? Was his face going to be all over social media by the time he got home? The thought made his pulse race. He handed the watch over to the well-dressed man, who examined it with a smirk. "You know, it's funny," he mused, slipping it onto his wrist. "People always talk about Keanu like he's some kind of mystery. Like, oh, he rides the subway, he's so humble, he doesn't act like a celebrity. But you know what I think?" He snapped the clasp shut and tested the weight of the watch on his arm. "I think it's not that he doesn't act like a celebrity. It's that most celebrities don't act like him." The words stung more than Marcus expected. The man slid his credit card across the counter, still watching Marcus. "And I think you just made one hell of a mistake today." The transaction went through with a soft beep, and Marcus could do nothing but nod stiffly as he handed back the receipt. The man gave him one last amused glance before walking off, his new watch gleaming under the store lights. As soon as he was gone, Marcus exhaled shakily and turned to the manager. "Sir, But the manager was already a step ahead. "Not here," he muttered, his jaw tight. "Office. Now." Marcus swallowed hard and followed him through a discreet door at the back of the store. Inside, the office was small but pristine, a space designed more for efficiency than comfort. The manager closed the door behind them, then turned sharply, his expression cold. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" he asked, his voice low but filled with controlled anger. Marcus tried to defend himself. "Sir, I didn't know it was him." "That's the problem," the manager snapped. "You didn't know, and you assumed. You assumed based on his clothes, his hair, the way he walked in. Do you know how many high-profile clients come in here looking like that? Do you know how much damage this could do?" Marcus felt his chest tighten. "It's not like the whole world knows," he said weakly. The manager let out a humorless laugh. "Are you serious?" Customers were recording. People were whispering. This isn't some small incident. By tomorrow morning, we could be viral for all the wrong reasons. Marcus felt his hands go clammy. He could already imagine the headlines. Luxury store humiliates Keanu Reeves. Employee insults Hollywood star, instantly regrets it. The kind of stories that spread like wildfire. The manager ran a hand through his graying hair and sighed. If this blows up, corporate will want a response. And if they need someone to take the fall, guess who that's going to be? Marcus's stomach dropped. Sir, please. The manager held up a hand. For now, you stay quiet. Don't talk to customers about this. Don't say anything stupid. And pray this doesn't turn into something bigger than it already is. Marcus nodded stiffly, but inside, panic churned. Meanwhile, outside the store, the world was already talking. A young woman who had been in the store, still buzzing from the experience, walked down the street with her phone in her hand. She had managed to capture a small video, not much, just a few seconds of the interaction, mostly audio, but enough to make it clear. She opened a social media app and quickly typed a caption. Luxury store employee just tried to brush off Keanu Reeves like he was nobody, biggest mistake ever. She hesitated for a second, then hit post. By the time she reached the next block, the notifications were already rolling in. Marcus sat at his desk, staring blankly at the store's security feed playing on the monitor. His hands were clenched together, his knuckles white. His mind was racing, but there was nowhere to escape the growing sense of dread inside him. Out on the sales floor, the energy had shifted. Customers whispered in hushed voices, their eyes flickering toward the counter where Marcus had stood just moments ago. Employees moved with nervous tension, their smiles forced, their interactions strained. The air was thick with something unspoken, something everyone felt but no one wanted to say out loud. The manager had stepped out to take a call, and Marcus knew exactly what it was about. Corporate had seen the video. They were watching the situation unfold in real time, just like the rest of the world. The store phone rang. An employee picked up, spoke in a hurried whisper, and quickly transferred the call. Moments later, the manager walked back in, his face pale. He didn't even look at Marcus as he grabbed a notepad and started writing furiously. Marcus's throat felt dry. He wanted to ask what was happening, but he already knew. It was only a matter of time before things escalated. Meanwhile, outside the store, the world had caught fire. The video had spread faster than anyone expected. Within an hour, it had been shared by multiple accounts, each one adding their own commentary. Some called it another example of how people judge too quickly. Others praised Keanu Reeves for his calm reaction, contrasting it with Marcus's arrogance. A few influencers picked it up, adding their own reactions, their voices dripping with second-hand embarrassment. I mean, seriously, how do you not recognize Keanu Reeves? Even if you don't, why would you act like that toward anyone? One streamer ranted into his camera. This guy's career is probably done. At first, Marcus had tried to convince himself it would blow over. Social media had a short memory, right? People moved on. But then came the news articles. Luxury store faces backlash after employee insults Keanu Reeves. Keanu stays classy while store employee makes a fool of himself. Fans outraged over Keanu Reeves' treatment at upscale boutique. Will the store respond? Marcus scrolled through the comments under the posts, his heart pounding. They better fire that guy. Imagine being rude to the nicest man alive. He just lost his job and doesn't even know it yet. His stomach twisted. He felt like he couldn't breathe. Then came the real hit. A major news outlet picked up the story. They didn't just mention the incident, they played the clip on national television. Suddenly, this wasn't just an internet moment. It was mainstream. And then, the store's official account made a statement. We deeply regret the way Mr. Reeves was treated in our store. This does not reflect our company's values. We are conducting an internal review and taking appropriate action. Marcus stared at the post, his hands trembling. Appropriate action. There was no way he was walking away from this unscathed. His phone buzzed. A text from a coworker. "Dude. HR wants to see you." Marcus closed his eyes. He could already hear the final moments of his career ticking away. Marcus felt a lump form in his throat as he stood outside the HR office. His mind raced with 1,000 thoughts, but none of them led to a way out. He had already seen the store's statement. Appropriate action. He knew what that meant. This was it. The end of his career, his reputation shattered over a moment of arrogance and a single mistake. The door opened, and the HR director, a woman with a sharp, unreadable expression, gestured for him to step inside. He moved stiffly, like he was walking to his own execution. As he sat down, he noticed the manager sitting across from him, arms crossed, his face tight with stress. The HR director let out a slow breath before speaking. "Marcus, I assume you're aware of the situation." He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. "The video has gone viral. We're receiving calls, emails, and media inquiries. This isn't just bad PR, it's a crisis." She tapped her fingers against the desk, then folded her hands together. "We need to act quickly." Marcus braced himself for the words he knew were coming. "You're suspended until further notice." His stomach dropped. "But," she continued, her tone shifting slightly, "there's another development that complicates things." Marcus blinked. "Another development?" The manager cleared his throat and slid a tablet across the desk. Keanu Reeves responded. Marcus's breath hitched as he looked down at the screen. His fingers trembled slightly as he pressed play. It was a short clip, grainy, taken by a fan who had caught up with Keanu outside a cafe. The actor stood calmly, a small smile on his face as he answered questions. A voice off camera asked, "Hey, Keanu. Did you see what people are saying about that luxury store incident?" Keanu chuckled, shaking his head. "Yeah, I heard about it. People are really upset for you, man." Keanu shrugged. "I don't think it was personal. People make mistakes. Do you think the employee should be fired?" Keanu's smile faded just slightly. He tilted his head, considering the question, then spoke carefully. "I don't think ruining someone's life over a bad moment is the answer." Marcus felt his chest tighten. Another voice chimed in, "Would you ever go back to that store?" Keanu gave a small laugh. "I don't hold grudges." Then he turned, waving at the fans before walking away. The clip ended. Silence filled the room. Marcus looked up, his pulse pounding. "So, what does this mean?" The HR director leaned back, exchanging a glance with the manager. "It means this situation isn't as simple as we thought." The manager sighed. "The internet expected us to fire you immediately. But now, Keanu himself is telling people not to overreact. That complicates things." Marcus swallowed. "So, am I fired or not?" The HR director hesitated. "We're still deciding. But this doesn't mean you're off the hook. People are still angry. The store's reputation is still at risk." She studied him for a long moment before adding, "And there's something else." Marcus tensed. "What?" She slid another device across the desk, this time, a phone with a paused video. She pressed play. A new clip appeared, recorded from inside the store earlier that day. It wasn't the viral moment that had started everything. This was something else, security footage that hadn't been made public yet. Marcus frowned as he watched himself on the screen. It was from before Keanu Reeves had even entered the store. He was standing at the counter, talking to a coworker. Then, his stomach turned to ice. The video had audio. And it caught something he hadn't realized before. His own voice played back at him. "I swear, man, the people that walk in here sometimes," he heard himself laugh. "You can just tell when someone doesn't belong, you know?" Marcus felt his entire body stiffen. The HR director pressed pause. The silence in the room was suffocating. That, she said slowly, was recorded right before you dismissed Keanu Reeves without even giving him a chance to speak. Marcus opened his mouth, but no words came out. The HR director's voice was calm, but firm. This isn't just about Keanu Reeves anymore. It's about how you see people. And that's a bigger problem than just one mistake. Marcus felt the weight of her words sink in. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Marcus sat frozen in his chair, his mind scrambling for a way to respond. He had been so focused on the viral video, the public backlash, and the fear of losing his job that he hadn't even considered the bigger picture. But now, hearing his own words play back at him, he realized there was no excuse, no justification that could make this go away. The HR director studied him, waiting. The manager sat stiffly, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. The weight of the moment pressed down on Marcus, making it hard to breathe. He swallowed hard. I didn't mean it like that. The HR director didn't react. She just let the silence stretch between them. Marcus felt a wave of panic rise in his chest. I was just joking, he tried again, his voice weaker this time. I didn't actually mean anything by it. The manager let out a slow breath, shaking his head. Marcus, that's not good enough. Marcus clenched his fists, his nails digging into his palms. His entire career, everything he had worked for, was slipping through his fingers. And the worst part? He couldn't even argue against it. The HR director finally leaned forward, folding her hands on the desk. Here's where we stand, she said calmly. If we fire you now, it might satisfy the public for a little while, but it won't fix the damage. Marcus tensed, unsure where she was going with this. The truth is, our store's reputation is already in shambles. People don't just see this as a single incident anymore. They're questioning whether this is how we treat all customers, whether this is part of our culture. If we don't address that, we'll lose more than just you. We'll lose everything. Marcus swallowed hard. So, what are you saying? The HR director exchanged a glance with the manager before answering. We want you to make things right. His stomach flipped. What? We're giving you a choice, she continued. We can fire you, release a statement, and move on. Or, you can take responsibility publicly. Apologize, not just to Keanu Reeves, but to everyone who's ever been dismissed or judged unfairly. A real apology, on camera. Marcus felt his pulse race. The idea of standing in front of a camera, owning up to his mistake, made his skin crawl. He could already picture the comments, the reactions. Would people even believe him? Or would they tear him apart even more? And what happens after that, he asked cautiously. The HR director's gaze didn't waver. If the apology is genuine, we'll consider giving you a second chance. Under strict conditions. Training. Oversight. A complete change in behavior. She let the words sink in. This isn't just about you, Marcus. It's about whether we can prove that we stand for something better. Marcus's mind raced. He could walk out now, try to escape the backlash, maybe find another job somewhere else, though he doubted any luxury store would touch him after this. Or he could face the humiliation, take ownership, and maybe, just maybe, have a shot at redemption. His throat felt dry. And if I refuse? The manager didn't hesitate. Then you're done here. Marcus's hands trembled slightly as he exhaled. He had never been the kind of person to admit when he was wrong. But as he sat there, staring at the paused video of his own words, he knew this wasn't something he could outrun. A few hours later, the store's social media account posted a video. Marcus sat in front of the camera, his face tense but serious. The store's logo was visible in the background, but the focus was entirely on him. He took a deep breath, then spoke. I want to start by saying that I was wrong. He swallowed. Not just in how I treated Keanu Reeves, but in the way I judged someone before even giving them a chance. I let my own assumptions cloud my judgment, and that's something I deeply regret. The comments poured in instantly. Some people called it performative. Others said it wasn't enough. But then, a new comment appeared. From Keanu Reeves himself. Owning up to mistakes is the first step. Wishing you the best on the journey ahead. The internet exploded. Some people still held on to their anger, but others started shifting the conversation. The focus wasn't just on the mistake anymore, it was on whether people truly believed in second chances. The next day, Marcus walked back into the store, unsure of what the future held. But for the first time in a long time, he wasn't just thinking about himself. He was thinking about the kind of person he wanted to become. Marcus stepped through the glass doors of the store, the familiar scent of expensive leather and polished wood filling his senses. But today, it all felt different. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by a quiet uncertainty. Employees glanced at him, some with curiosity, others with skepticism. He could feel their eyes on him, waiting to see what kind of person he would be now. He took a deep breath and walked to his usual counter. The same counter where, just days ago, he had made the mistake that nearly cost him everything. He ran his hand along the smooth surface, the memory of that moment playing in his head again. The way he had dismissed Keanu Reeves without a second thought. The way his words had been caught on security footage, revealing more about him than he ever wanted to admit. A familiar voice pulled him from his thoughts. "Didn't think I'd see you back here." Marcus turned to see Daniel, one of his co-workers, standing nearby with his arms crossed. Unlike the others, Daniel wasn't watching him from a distance, he was confronting him head-on. Marcus gave a small nod. "Didn't think I'd be back either." Daniel studied him for a moment before speaking again. The video, the apology. That wasn't easy, was it? Marcus let out a slow breath. "No. It wasn't." Daniel nodded. "Some people think you don't deserve another chance." Marcus met his gaze. "Maybe they're right." A pause. Then Daniel sighed and leaned against the counter. "You know, I've worked here for years, and I've seen a lot of people act exactly the way you did. The only difference is, they never got caught." He shrugged. "Maybe this place needed a wake-up call. And maybe you did too." Marcus frowned. "You think I can actually fix this?" Daniel smirked. "I think that's up to you." The words lingered in Marcus's mind for the rest of the day. The store was quieter than usual, the lingering controversy still affecting business. But as he helped customers, really helped them, without judgment or assumptions, he started to feel something he hadn't in a long time. Growth. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, the energy in the store shifted. Marcus went through training sessions on customer service, diversity, and bias awareness. The lessons weren't easy, and some forced him to confront parts of himself he didn't like. But he showed up, again and again, determined to prove that his apology wasn't just words. One afternoon, as he was assisting a couple looking for a luxury handbag, a soft voice interrupted him. "Excuse me?" Marcus turned and felt his breath catch for a second. Standing in front of him was Keanu Reeves. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Keanu, dressed simply in jeans and a dark jacket, gave him a small, knowing smile. "I was in the area," he said casually. "Thought I'd stop by." Marcus swallowed. The weight of their last encounter sat heavy between them. He wasn't sure what to say, so he did the only thing that felt right. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, meeting Keanu's gaze. Again. Keanu studied him for a moment before nodding. "I saw your video." Marcus braced himself, unsure of what Keanu would say next. "You meant it," Keanu said simply. "That's what matters." Relief washed over Marcus, but he didn't let himself get too comfortable. He knew respect wasn't something you earned overnight, it was something you built over time. Keanu glanced around the store. "Honestly, I wasn't planning to buy anything today. Just wanted to see if the place felt different." Marcus hesitated before asking, "And does it?" Keanu's smile widened slightly. "Guess I'll have to come back and find out." With that, he gave a polite nod and walked toward the exit. But before he left, he turned back and added, "For what it's worth, second chances only mean something if you use them right." Marcus stood there long after Keanu was gone, the words echoing in his mind. Months later, the store had managed to recover. Not just in terms of business, but in reputation. Customers noticed the difference. Employees felt it too. The way people were treated, the way assumptions were challenged, it all mattered. As for Marcus, he no longer saw his job the way he once had. It wasn't just about selling luxury goods anymore. It was about the experience, the respect, and the understanding that every person who walked through those doors had a story of their own. He wasn't perfect. He knew that. But he was trying. And sometimes, trying was the first step toward real change. And for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was exactly where he needed to be.